Moana is a disaster at the box office. That's no surprise. It's underperforming Snow White in terms of tickets sold. It's even worse possibly than Supergirl. Well, sort of. But today we'll tell you why Disney is now considering, according to analysts, according to commentators, on possibly killing the whole live-action endeavor. Look out Tangled, look out Stitch. Disney might be ready to switch and drop live action forever. It's a great day, it's a groovy day, and folks, when I say they're going to drop live action forever, I don't mean all live action movies. I mean transforming recently made CGI and cartoon films into live action, whatever that means, because Moana is mostly still CGI. Today, as we dive in, get ready because the numbers are amazing, and we'll tell you why Hollywood is trying their darndest to hide just how much money this is going to lose. In fact, I think we know the strategy, how they're cooking the books, as they say. Although no illegalities are being alleged here. Speculation, although of a knowledgeable sort, on the way. Click the like button, and we begin. The live-action Moana is such a disaster, it's making people question, are live-action Disney films dead in the water? Over? Tangled and Lilo and Stitch 2 might be it. The Wrap has this one. It's Adam Chitwood as Moana whiffs. Is Disney's live-action remake strategy dead? In just a minute, we'll tell you how much money this is losing, but it's a lot. And it might be causing Disney, even with Tangled, which is just now entering production this week, to say, hold up, what did we do wrong and how do we never do this again? It says it's a tough break for Disney as the live-action Moana crashed at the box office this weekend with $43 million, opening against a budget of around $300 million. Internationally, it did not fare much better with just $52 million. That's barely above what Snow White opened to last year. And folks, if we adjust for inflation, it's not. Which ended up grossing a mere $87 million domestically. Now, if Moana can't top 100, that would be shocking. I mean, we're already in shocking territory, but that would be shocking. It says, so what happened? The decision to make a live-action Moana seemed like a sound one. The animated 2016 film is one of the most streamed movies on Disney+. By the way, it's disappeared now after the sequel. We've talked about that, though. The Disney flywheel kicked into gear to greenlight a live-action redo that would bring Dwayne Johnson back as Maui, and the Disney Plus team would simultaneously make a sequel series for the streaming service. And I'm going to tell you that's not true. It took them 10 years to do anything, right? We got a sequel based on a TV show that was crap that destroyed the franchise, and now here we are with a live action 10 years later. This didn't kick into gear. This was Bob Iger at the end of his tenure as CEO trying to find some way to lift up the stock, and they said, what do we got? Well, our biggest girl brand, Moana, let Star Wars and Marvel that. And they did. It goes on to talk about all of this and where it compares to what they've had in the past. You know, The Lion King, which really isn't live action. It's CGI, but what have you. Folks, here's the problem for them. The amount of money they're about to lose on Moana is insane. And Anthony D'Alessandro is breaking this down. Although they get the numbers wrong, we can parse out what the truth is. It says that Moana is on track to lose 100 to 125 million. That's bunk. I'll explain why, because their own numbers give it away. Let's dive in and I'll tell you what's happening here. It says, sources tell us that Moana, which arrives in theaters less than 2 years after the $1 billion plus grossing animated hit Moana 2, the franchise killer, that's what we'll call that now, Bob Iger's franchise killer, stands to lose between 100 and 125 million in the title's first cycle after a $95 million worldwide opening. Okay, come on down. Let's figure out how much is it really going to lose. It talks about Snow White. Snow White performed better if you adjust for inflation. So what's going on? Okay. The deep sixing of the musical Island Princess and demigod Maui in the flesh rendition boils down to, yes, an exorbitant cost at $250 million before prints and ads, aka marketing. The estimation they have on marketing is 145. Okay, so 145. Marv, you got a calculator? I'm not going to make you do the math live, but if you've got a calculator, if you could add 250 and 145, I can tell you what it'll add up to. It's almost 400, 5 million less. But if you could get the calculator ready, 395 is going to be the total. Million, yeah. 395 is the total spend on Moana. Now, folks, what you know and what I know that means, and they never tell us the marketing spend, so I'm glad they did here. What that means is this movie essentially needs $800 million to break even. Because 395 plus, well, times 2, because they only get half back. So we got to multiply it by 2 for the break even. 395 gets them almost exactly on $800 million for the break even. So how's it going to perform? What they try to say, we'll go back to the headline because I was expecting them to explain the headline. Maybe they don't. They're saying that it's going to lose $100 to $125 million. Now, here's how they're coming up with that number, because I don't know if you all have figured this out yet, but if it costs $800 million to make for the break even, if it's $800 million to break even, and you might end at 250, that's way worse than 100 to 125. So here's how they're doing this, guys. My belief on this 100 to 125 million is what they're suggesting is that after the box office is done, okay, everybody listen, because you can understand how they play these games. After the box office is done and it ends at like 200, okay, and that's 600 million short of the break even, which, by the way, Disney only takes half that hit, right? So $300 million loss at that point. The way they're getting it down to 100 to 125, I believe, is that they're going to claim that Disney will sell Moana, the live action remake, to Disney. Now, they're not saying that, but the way this works is the production company that makes Moana is not going to sell Moana to Netflix. It's not going to sell it to Warner Brothers. It's not going to sell it to cable channels. They're going to sell it to Disney Plus, which inside Disney is a separate company. And therefore, Marv, Caro, Steve, therefore, because they're going to sell it to another business, but that business exists inside Disney, therefore it didn't lose $300 million because Disney Plus bought it for 100 or 150 or whatever they're going to pay for it.
Yep.
And they hide the fact that all of these companies are owned from Disney. So what they're really doing is when they say, well, actually it made this much money, they're not telling you that they took money from this hand, they put it in this hand, and then claimed, oh, well, we made money. No, you didn't. You just shifted the money and then hit it in the headline. That's the game here, I believe. And this is why it's so bad that they're saying, we may not make any more of these now.
Well, so it's funny. I actually find the comparison with Snow White, the fact that it finished for the weekend just about even with Snow White, to be fascinating. Because here you have two movies that performed exactly the same, that made the exact opposite mistakes of one another. Snow White changed everything from the settings to the music to the characters' primary motivations to the supporting cast, all of it. Nothing in Snow White was the way it was in the movie, whereas Moana changed nothing. And as I said many times, the opposite of a mistake is not a correction, as oftentimes just another mistake, because they swung so in the other direction. What people want out of these live action remakes is not a shot for shot remake of something that they already have, especially something that's not just 10 years old. What they want is, and while I don't love Emma Watson, I think Beauty and the Beast was kind of the perfect storm for this, because it hit all of the original songs, it hit all of the original points, but it added on to them. Because back in the early 90s and in the 80s, children's programming, there wasn't a whole lot of thought given into the story for these things, because they thought that we as kids just didn't care. We did. We cared a lot. We would talk about it on the playground ad nauseum. Like, how does nobody know there was a prince? Like, what happened to Mr. Potts? And they resolved all those plot holes in Beauty and the Beast. That's why you do a live action remake, because you're able to actually present the nostalgia, but also give something else. And I think that is the problem. They got way too arrogant after Lilo and Stitch, and they did not realize, why Lilo and Stitch did as well as it did. It's because of Stitch. Because Stitch has never gone away. Stitchomania never ended. Go into any Target, any Walmart, any Disney store today, there will be Stitch merchandise on the shelf. That is the only Disney character, other than like Mickey Mouse, that always has something on the shelf.
He's cute. Miga Nana Cristo, right?
Yep.
I want to kind of push back though, because I think the Stitch was after we had already been like criticizing the remakes, right? Because Stitch was a blip on the radar, where it was just like, whoa, what happened?
Well, so after Snow White. Yeah, after Snow White, they thought that, this is not going to work. Let's cancel Tangled, and then Stitch made $1 billion. And right, like, never mind. It's not the strategy. Sorry, Steve, what were you saying?
But also, it's like, the difference is at least Lilo and Stitch was a bit of fun, right? Whereas like all the other remakes aren't as much. So I think that it created like a blip on the radar that gave them hope and a resurgence. But still, like all of these movies were all in production long before Lilo and Stitch ever came out. Like we've been hearing about the Tangled remake for probably close to 3-4 years now, and so we knew it was coming out. We thought that there was going to be some DEI casting for it, but anyway, go ahead.
It was coming out. It had been announced, but after Snow White, they canceled it.
Now, I do want to say, Caro, that...
and they brought it back after Lilo and Stitch, sorry.
Caro, in terms of losses, I do want to clarify. This is not going to lose, even if it underperforms Snow White. This is not going to lose as much money as Snow White. Because Moana, they're reporting that at what? What did they say? 250, 245? Was it 250 they said on the production budget? And we don't believe that's the actual cost. It's the budget. What was it they did? Where's it at here? 250. There you go. $250 million, what they're declaring. No, that's the global box office. Anyway, 250 is what they're declaring. There it is. 250. Well, good grief, the ad. 250 is what they're declaring on the before P&A production cost, and then 145 on the global spend on the production. So that's how we get to the 395. But Caro, Snow White actually cost like $350 million because they shot the film 3 times. So we're nowhere. It's impossible for it to lose Snow White money. But the fact that they have 2 Snow Whites, the fact that Snow White outsold this tickets wise, I think has them freaked out. And I think they should be freaked out. And they don't have the ability to make new stuff is the problem. Every new thing they create is less than the stuff they used to make.
Well, I just think people just don't have faith in them anymore. I mean, nobody wants to see it. Nobody's excited about it. When you guys were talking about Leo and Stitch, I decided to do some quick market research and see how many Funko Pops of Stitch there were. There's 12, right? Like, what other Disney character has that many different variations of Funko Pops? It's because everybody likes that character, right? And Moana was a fun film. If you like a different version of Pocahontas being told with a different ethnic group, like, sure, it's great. But I mean, why? Like, it's this thing about sequels continues to grate on my nerves slightly because we don't need sequels. And if we are going to do the sequel, I'd say that we should probably do it the way that we used to do it with like Old Beauty and the Beast, where we would have like, you know, like the cartoon TV movie specials that would expand on certain things. You know, like, you know, the Spirit of Christmas, Finding Lost Things, Clean Your Room, you know, stuff like that. Like, make it for kids, right? And for some reason, I get like the impression that these live action remakes are being done to address commentary, I guess, from adults when they watch this. And I don't really think that's their target audience, honestly. Although I am enjoying it. I guess that this must be her daughter. That's kind of a fun thing to see.
No, it's her little sister. And Carol, what they did is, like last year, 18 months ago, they released a TV show, but they cut out all the middle episodes. So you had the 2 first episodes and the last 2 episodes. They smushed all that together into a movie, and they released that as a sequel. But it's a crappy, terrible TV show. And so it was a crappy, terrible sequel. You know, they didn't actually make a sequel the way that you traditionally would. And now I think they're even worried about putting out Moana 3. I think they're actually worried. Like, and this was the number 1 girls brand on the planet.
3. We don't need a Moana 3. And I'm actually really disappointed to hear that that's
you're going to get Frozen 7.
I don't need that either.
The thing is, though, this is how they've been making their sequels lately. It's the exact same thing they did with The Mandalorian, right? They just take the episodes, smush it together because they're like, oh, the thing on Disney Plus, that's not going to work. Let's put it in the movie in theaters instead so it fails and everyone can see the numbers. Well, it's ridiculous. But the other thing, though, that goes through my mind is, like, they opened the Way of Water attraction in the parks, right? And that thing has been
splash pad.
Has been a dumpster fire right from the get-go. Think about the attention that this is going to add to the dumpster fire of a quote-unquote ride, which I have a friend who went to the parks, and she thought as she was going through the queue for the Way of Water, she's like, oh, we're walking up to a ride, and she realized, no, we're just literally looking at things.
Just a splash pad.
It was. Yeah,
just a splash pad.
Because she thought that, like, everyone was just kind of taking their time looking at all the little things, not realizing, like, no, this is the thing.
So there you go, folks. The Bob Iger strategy has destroyed the franchise, taking it from the number 1 thing in the world, most viewed movie year after year after year. Marv, wrap us up here. Your final thoughts on what they've done to Moana, and should they end their live action efforts outside of Stitch and Tangled?
They had a wonderful thing going with Moana. They had an incredible story, an incredible first movie. the best movie they've made in the modern age. But the problem was they got greedy with it. The fact that Moana 2 made as much money as it made shows that there was still a hunger for more Moana because people loved it so much. But it flies in the face, and the entire remake strategy flies in the face of Walt Disney's philosophy. And that's what you have to always remember when it comes to things like this. Walt Disney did not want sequels. He did not want remakes. When he was asked after Three Little Pigs if he was going to do more with the Three Little Pigs, his response was famously, "You don't follow pigs with pigs." And you have to constantly be doing something new. He did not like sequels, and now this company under Bob Iger became the sequel and remake company. And, you know, people are not waiting around to see what classic you're going to reimagine next. They just want the next classic. And that's where they have to put their focus. But with the creatives that they have working for them right now, I don't know if that's possible.
A Disney company. Pigs After Pigs Incorporated. What a joy, what a pleasure, folks, to get to make a video for you. And thank you for watching the entire thing. We could not do this without folks like you. We could not do this without the truly dedicated and those who care about what we have to say. And you can share this out with even more people by clicking that like button, by sharing this out across the social medias, and by doing this one thing, folks, that we don't say enough. Click it and stick it to the algorithms. It is the notification bell. Until the next time we spend time together, folks, keep learning, keep growing, and as always, keep having fun.